Okay, so this is a instructional video on how to make the large hexagons for the pattern Iridescence. As you can see, I already have my 1.5 inch hexagon cut out. I have my 1 1/4 colored strips, my 1.5 inch geometric print strips already cut out and labeled. I've got them in the order I'm going to use them in. So for the first piece, you're going to put your fabrics right sides together. See, I'm just going to lay that right over the top of this hexagon. Now, the important part on piece number 1 is that you leave quite a bit of extra, because when you do your last piece here, we want this to overlap it. So we're going to leave, I'm going to call it the tail. So you're going to leave a tail, and you want to make sure that it is long enough to cover the 1 1/4 inches that is going to come across here in a second. So I like to leave extra. I'm going to leave about 2.5 inches. When you start sewing here, at the beginning, you're going to start about a 1/4 inch back from the corner of your hexagon. And really, you can even start halfway back, because when we do the last row, we'll come back over that seam. So just don't sew all the way to the edge. I'm going to go ahead and take that to the sewing machine. So we're just going to make sure we're not starting at the edge. We're going to start at least a 1/4 inch back. This first one's tough because it's so small. I am going to do a little reverse stitch when I get to the end. I'm going to fold this back, fold it about a 1/4 inch. This one's going to be a little tricky. It's going to want to wiggle around, but you're going to trim this side. Just make sure you line up. I'm lined up on a line down here, so you can see. Lined up on this edge, that's where we're going to cut. Make sure this is pretty straight here. And as you can see on the next piece, once I've cut that, it's got a little angle already on it. When you lay your fabrics right sides together again to do this next side, you can see that your angle lines up. So you can just line up on this edge, line up on this edge, and line up on this edge. And then go ahead, and this time we're going to sew the whole length. We don't need to start a 1/4 inch back. That's only for the first row. Okay, so you can see where we sewed that. We're just going to fold our fabric back along that line. And we're again going to trim our excess off. As you can see here, I'm lined up with this line. I'm also lined up on that line and this line. And we're going to cut just our excess off right here. And we're going to repeat that process all the way around until we get to the last side. See what it looks like. All we've got left is this side here. I like to just keep this first piece kind of folded back out of my way so I can see what I'm doing. Try to make sure you can see what I'm doing here. So for the most part, it's the same as the others. We're going to take our piece that we just cut off and we're going to line up those two edges that match. And we're going to sew all the way across there. So just like we've done before, we're just going to fold that back. Okay, so in order to know where to cut your excess this time, what we're going to do, you see how that first piece folds right up over the top of that? Just want you to take that first piece and just fold it flat over like this. Now, it's not going to want to lay flat. So right here where it's stitched, I know this is probably something most people at the quilt place might be after me for this one, but I'm going to show you what I do. Right there where that is stitched, I'm going to pop that seam. Can you see that there? Just I'm going to one little stitch. That way I can pull that. And don't worry, we're going to go back and restitch it, but that way I can lay that flat. And you're only going to do that on your first round around your hexagon. You will not do it on the other rows. When you get to the other rows, the hexagon's big enough, it will lay flat without you having to do that. So now you can see that lays nice and flat now that we popped that stitch. So we've just, as you can see, this is what it looks like. We're going to take the tail piece, fold it over, and then we're going to cut along this edge. That's kind of our guide. But you want to make sure you're all lined up with other points as well before you cut. Okay, so I want you to see, before I cut, I'm lined up with this line over here. I'm lined up with this corner and across the edge of my fabric where I'm going to cut. So we cut that excess off, and we're now going to sew along that same line, 1/4 inch in along that same edge. You can see here, this is where we started. That's our very first seam. So we're going to run right into that. That's why I said if you leave a little more than 1/4 inch, it's not a big deal because you're going to wind up sewing right up to it anyway. Okay, so now you can see we have all 6 sides on our hexagon, and now we just need to trim it up. And now we can trim our tail off as well. And now we are ready to begin round 2. And round 2 is basically just a repeat. We're going to lay our fabrics right sides together. Leave your tail, as we did before, at least 2.5 inches. Start 1/4 inch back and sew this edge. All right, so we have made it to this last edge again. So I'm going to lay out my piece. I'm going to take it over here and sew it. Be right back. We're going to go ahead and fold that back. And we're gonna let our first piece come back over the front like that. We're gonna do just like we did last time. We're gonna take that tail. This is our tail from our first piece. We're gonna fold this over. Now this time you have enough here that you can get it to lay flat without having to pop this stitch. You don't want to have to do that every time. So this time get it to lay good and flat. I'll put my ruler on it. And you just want to make sure before you cut that you're lined up at some other edges. This one's a little unreliable because of how you're having to fold over your fabric. But you can see that I'm lined up here with this edge, and I'm also lined up here. So I'm going to cut here. And then I'm going to sew along that same edge. And just like last time, you can see this is our first seam. I have quite a bit of thread hanging off of mine. That's our very first seam. And we're just going to sew right up to it. So we're going to sew 1/4 inch in right here along this edge. Okay, so when we come back from the sewing machine, this is what we've got. I ran right into that first seam here, sewed right along there. So now we can fold everything back out flat. And if it helps you to iron it at this point, I think I'm going to take mine over to the ironing board really quickly. All right, and now we have round 2 and we're ready to just trim up. And we've made it to our final round. So you can see that's what the hexie looks like.